Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 12th, and we are gathered here in order to experience some truth. The whole spiritual quest really comes down to this theme. What is true? And I'm going to share in this talk some principles of truth, some truths about truth. I'm going to share a little bit about how I came to realize that these core truths. I'll be leaning on and drawing from my dearest teachers and truth sources as I share with you. And I'll share a little bit about what the process of discovering my own truth and following these principles. As I've been discovering the principles, of course, my life has been shifting and changing in response to my changing relationship with the truth and my discoveries of truth. And so, we'll be talking some about sort of the absolute, the universal, and we'll be talking about the relative and the personal. It's kind of two different kinds of truth. So the first truth about truth is that the truth is. The truth is. The truth is true. In its very nature, it is real. The word in Sanskrit for truth is the same word as the word for reality, sat, right? And an expression of truth is satyam, right? Or satya. But that core root of the word sat just means isness, being. And so for every truth that I'm going to put forth for you about truth, there are ramifications. That's a truth in and of itself, right? For everything that is real, there are huge ramifications. Because the truth is, and it is in an absolute way. The absolute truth is true in an absolute way. It means that it's not changing. It means that it's not partial. It means that there's not the truth isn't true over here, but it's not true over there. So when we're talking about Sat, the absolute truth, the truth of reality, the universal truth, the supreme truth, there's all these words that we can use. These are also all these words that are used to describe, of course, God in different traditions. That the absolute truth has to be true everywhere in an unchanging way. That it runs throughout the entire universe and throughout all time, or is beyond time, you could say, or beyond space, beyond time. Has some ramifications that are really useful, right? One, it means Satyam Eva Jayate. The truth always wins. The truth always prevails. That's good. That's good for us truth seekers. It means that the truth is always here. We can't be away from truth. And it means that if you're real, if you have any reality, and we've been exploring that reality through the sense of I amness. I have this sense that I am. through all the changes that I've been through, right? Those changes I've been through are, we could call like relative truths. There's a truth to the fact that I was a little girl and I lived in this place, but they can't be absolute truths because of change, right? But so whatever about me is true, whatever my truest nature is, it must also be sought. It must also be always here, outside of space and time. Space and time belong to the relative truth. Space and time are the changeable, the changing. So the absolute truth absolutely is. And whatever is true about you is too. Whatever you're seeking is already here. So that's both encouraging but also confusing and possibly discouraging, because you go, well, if it's here and I haven't found it or I don't realize it, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? How am I going to get out of that? We're going to talk about that too. So knowing that the truth, the absolute truth, is not changing. It's not it's not bound by space and time. It would be space and time. We could say instead, space and time are inside of truth. They're one of the many, 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 many things inside of the real. But we usually think about everything being inside of space and time. But it's the opposite, actually. So this means that anything that we can see, hear, feel, really is going to be belonging to that partial truth, to the relative truth, to not the absolute truth. It's not what we're looking for in meditation. It's not the place that we want to sit. So anything that I can see isn't me. And so when we're meditating, right, all of our practices are here to help us get back into alignment with truth, right? So when we're meditating, what we want to try to do is sit as the witness, to sit as the I amness, the beingness that is observing everything happening. So here's some more truths that all in a way come from this first truth, that the truth is the real. Truth is not a possession. Truth can't be a thing. And as we said before, you are the truth. You are the reality, or anything that's real about you. You probably have a lot of things that you think of as being me, you know, but the part that's really you is the I am. The truth is not a thing, and you are not a thing. You cannot be trapped. You cannot be possessed. You cannot be controlled. Some aspects of you could, your body, your mind, your personality, all those things can be manipulated. But the truth of you cannot be. So when we look to truth, we have to, just as when we look at ourselves, right? If we want to discover our true nature, we have to we have to realize that the very way that we've been relating to truth has kept us from truth. I'll share a little Nisargadatta quote. He says, "You take remembering to be knowledge, True knowledge is ever fresh, new, unexpected. It wells up from within. When you know what you are, you also know what you know. Between knowing and being, there is no gap. I think I misread that. When you know what you are also what you know. You are what you know. Okay, so what he's saying is, whereas knowledge, what we usually think of as knowledge, is an accumulation of things. I'm properly learning Sanskrit now, and my vocabulary list is growing. Right, that's knowledge, useful, right? Um, but the moments when I feel really like when I feel like a Sanskrit speaker, I'm not clinging to any of it. It's just sort of it's in me. It's a part of me. Learning a language, I feel like, is a great way to feel into to that a storehouse of knowledge is different than being that knowledge, being that truth, being that wisdom. And so this is a big piece of the work, is looking for yourself at how are you relating to truth as you seek it for yourself. Are you trying to own it, control it, possess it, accumulate it, have the most of it? Are you trying to, I have been for so much of my life trying to be the one who knows. But in that very way of relating to truth, we end up trapping ourselves in untruth because we're treating the truth like a thing to be possessed. And guess what? If we treat truth, sat, reality, that way, we're probably treating other people like things, you know? Probably treating time like a thing. I talked about that some last week. So this is something to look at. How am I relating to the truth? And again, this takes us out of that way of looking where we're so used to looking at the things out there and then trying to move them around. And what all the teachers tell us is let those go and come back to the beingness. That's where the power is. That's where the truth is. And then all of the things fall into place, actually, of their own accord. Let's see if we have a little Tao Te Ching for us. The whole thing is these truths. But he says here, Lao Tzu says, the very first one, the unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. And so by relating to truth, to people, to our own personality, to time, as if it's a thing, we get caught in desire. We get caught in the desire to be the knower. We get caught in the desire to be the truth speaker. We get caught in the desire to control and manipulate our time, our resources. And in the same first verse of the Tao Te Ching, he says, "Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding." And so again, from these first principles of truth, we start to get guidance about how to practice with truth, and it's a lot of letting go. I have been obsessed for so much of my life with everything being light. I want to understand everything. And by it's attachment to light that will make us miss the darkness, the spaciousness, the nothingness that actually holds all the things. Okay. So if what we're doing, instead of accumulating more truths, instead of, if what we're doing is actually changing our relationship to the truth in order to become wise, this leads us to another principle of truth, which is truth and love go together. And I invite you to examine for yourself, what else does truth go with? Truth comes with trust. What can you trust if you can't trust what's real and ever with you? What's universal? What's the same for you and the same for me? Which the truth treats us all equally. You can really trust that. I do. People who are very loyal, I don't really trust that, right? Because your loyalty can shift and then you're going to go against me, right? But but that which loves all equally. I gave you guys a quote, I think last week, that talks about this. For the truth being love. If not, I'll post it up again. But this is a Nisargadatta quote about the truth being lovable and loving. And he talks about this a lot, about seeing everything, and through the eyes of truth, everything and everyone is lovable. So truth and love, right? Truth goes with trust. Truth goes with love. Truth comes with wholeness. And the truth sets us free. It is the gift to be simple. It is the gift to be free. And when we start to see this again, it gives us a sense of what we're looking for and we're not looking for when we talk about truth. It gives us a sense of how we can get back to it. Seek out others that are displaying the hallmarks of truth. People who are loving. People who are not trying to control you or others or manipulate everything all the time are probably established in some level of truth. We just sang before this together the Shaker song, Simple Gifts. And at the end, they say turning and turning. By turning and turning, we turn round right. And that's possibly a reference to they would do spinning, kind of like the Sufis, right? Dance. We do movement and yoga and qigong and that kind of stuff in Nowhere Village. But people have always used kind of movement practices to take themselves beyond space and time, right, and into these other ways of relating and to clear ourselves out. So it's possibly that. But I have to say that it reminds me of I know the Annie Lennox version. Somebody correct me in the chat box, but I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but I just came up and I'm doing it anyway. I think the Leonard Cohen song, Castles Burning. Don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Anyway, and there's a part in there when he says, find someone who's turning and you will come around. So this also, that song, I think, is about letting go of the unreal, seeing that I'll come back around to this maybe at the end, but seeing that all these egoic things that we built, they're like, this is so real, my little castle, right? This means I'm a queen, right? That's what. And watching the unreal burn, rather than grieving and mourning, to see that that wasn't our home anyway. Our home is much more simple, right? Our real home. And so that whole song is relevant, but this one part really struck me. It's like, find your teacher is one way of putting it, and in some lineages that's so important. But the sangha, right? The sangha means the sacred community. For me, that's been just as important as finding Nisargadatta and Latsu and, Adyashanti and these various teachers of mine, has been being able to be in the company of other people who are also doing this, also pecking away at the shell of untruth from the inside bit by bit. Other people who are trying to break free. And we need company. We're social beings. Some part of you will always seek it out. And if we're not seeking those that are also exploring in this way and learning how to be loving and learning what equality means and learning what trust means, then we will end up in some company, and we'll probably end up in company with people that are very, very trapped in their own delusions. And watching you start to get free, that is not something that's going to make them comfortable, and it's not something that's going to, you're not going to get much help getting free. This other stuff will get reinforced. Okay, so that brings us to the sort of other side of the last truth, which is, if truth brings us freedom, if the truth is free, and the truth is love, and the truth is everywhere, always, it's belonging. The untruth. Okay, so what does this mean about the untruth? The untruth creates a prison, kind of prison for us. It is in all of the different teachings, and certainly in my own personal inquiry, I've discovered this to be true, that the truth is related to suffering. The untruth imprisons us. It keeps us feeling separate. It keeps us feeling alienated. Keeps us feeling away from home. And so this causes suffering, the imprisonment of the untruth. Believing that the castle is the thing that we need to cling to in order to be free, that itself is what makes us unfree. So let's kind of get into what that all means. And how is it that we can break free from the imprisonment of our falsehoods and live in freedom, in wholeness, in truth? Get back to what at the very beginning of the Yoga Sutras, we learn our true nature. This is our true nature when we're not attached. So, well, here I'm going to go ahead. I think that to transition, I'll go ahead and give you guys a couple Nisargadatta quotes. Right, one I've said many times, and you've probably heard it many times. The student is asking this exact question: how do I get at the truth? How do I get back to the real? And he says, let go of your attachment to the unreal, and the real will swiftly and smoothly step into its own. I'm gonna skip ahead to this other quote, which I think explains it even better. But that's it. Okay, so that is essentially our technique to let go of the unreal, right? But all this other stuff we're going to talk about in these last minutes of the talk will be about how we do that. He says it is also, right, all this suffering this guy's describing because you believe yourself to be somebody, a body, or something. Stop. Stop. Let go of the unreal, right? I just did retreat for 2 weeks. Every time you meditate for 20 minutes, for 2 minutes, you're stopping. Okay, so you guys are already doing this. Stop. Look. Investigate. Ask the right questions. Come to the right conclusions and have the courage to act on them and see what happens. The first steps may bring the roof down on your head, but soon the commotion will clear and there will be peace and joy. That's been true for me. It did come crashing down on my head, that burning castle thing, right? Came down on my head. And what he said about there being peace and joy in the end has also been true for me. Okay, this is Nisargadatta again. You know so many things about yourself, but the knower you don't know. Find out who you are, the knower of the known. Look within diligently. Remember that the perceived cannot be the perceiver. Whatever you see, hear, or think of, remember you are not what happens. You are he to whom it happens. Delve deeply into the sense I am, and you will surely discover that the perceiving center is universal. As universal as the light that illuminates the world. All that happens in the universe happens to you, the silent witness. On the other hand, whatever is done by you, the universal and inexhaustible energy. So that's the teaching right there in a nutshell. And I'm going to make all these quotes available for you guys and probably a handful more. But so I've been doing this, right? This is what I was trying to do all of retreat. This is what in various forms I've been trying to do for the last 10 years and even longer. I remember being a little girl and thinking about some of this stuff. I remember seeing ants crawling on my bicycle. I must have been 5 or so. And I remember thinking, well, they use my bicycle very differently than I do. They're still relating to my bicycle, but they're crawling on it. Like, I remember I wrote a book about it, a little story about what it would be like to be an ant on the bicycle, like this the universal witness, right, from a different perspective. And I think that and here I'll share with you now sort of just the newest for me, like what's been newly challenging or which means newly revelatory. I have spent a lot of time most recently looking at what attaches me to my prison. What makes me want to stay there? And Nisargadatta talks a lot about mostly what you're going to see is what you're not. You have to spend time with that. In past retreats, I just wanted to sit and like be blissed out all the time, and I'd be like, oh, it's a bad day of meditation if I wasn't, I don't know, if I was uncomfortable. And this last retreat, I was uncomfortable a ton, but I stopped judging it and thinking that's a bad meditation. Like, oh, that's what I was needing to look at. And here's what gets me stuck in my prison. And it goes back to some of the teachings that we were talking about right before I went on retreat. I remember talking about sukha and dukkha, pleasure and pain. and punya and apunya, which is success and failure. Or, yeah, we can stay with that. I realized that that's it for me. Essentially, I have been very, very attached to sukha in my body, feeling comfortable. And I've been really avoiding dukkha and discomfort to the extent where even like the most blissful experience that I probably had the whole retreat was this really long epic walk where I let myself get lost and just let myself, I don't have to be here for like 3 days. No one needs me anywhere, you know? I can get lost. If I really need to, I can break silence and ask somebody who's driving to give me directions. But it was so freeing and so wonderful. But I remember like so many, like earlier on in the retreat, I was taking shorter walks and would take water with me, or it was all about kind of like, I don't want to get to that place where I'm uncomfortable or scared or, where I don't know, where I'm outside of the known. And just seeing how so much of my life I've spent trying to collect comforts, and hold them and trying to avoid as much as I can the discomforts. And I'm a planner, I'm an organized person, right? So that's a huge part of my personality. And I again, it just felt so good I left my property with tennis shoes and like a little shorts and like a sports bra, basically. And that was it. I didn't have a wallet. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have water. I didn't have. And it felt so good. But yeah, again, just seeing the ways that so all of this trying to create everything, make everything pleasant for myself. Okay, that's one big attachment, and that's essentially what all the gurus say is attachment to the body. It's really just attachment to the body. And here's the other piece, is being attached to success. And that is being attached to my personality, or my ego, you could say, a story of Aaron. And that's a stickier one for me in a lot of ways. But they're both equally kind of running all the time. And Nisargadatta says, whatever pleases you keeps you back, right? Anything in that prison that you go, it's pretty nice. I mean, toilet in here. I have a, it's like, I know it, right? The known becomes really comfortable. So whatever pleases you in that prison makes you go, I'm good. I'm not going to go on the adventure. I'm not going to try to bust out of here. I'm not going to find out what else is out there. And what I've been realizing is that these last few years really has been kind of the roof coming down over my head. I got physically sick for the first time in my life. I've been very, 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 very lucky in my life to have a body that just didn't have a lot of illness. And when illness came to my body, I was so upset about it. I refused it and resisted it so hard. And on this retreat, I was feeling a lot of those issues come up. I was going, I'm on retreat. I'm doing everything right. I'm cleansing. I shouldn't feel this way. But it's like, no, honey, this is you seeing your attachment. The discomfort is not the thing. It's you wanting it to be other. It's you wanting it to be different that's causing your suffering. And seeing that the anxiety that has been mounting and building in these last few years and really reached a crescendo with COVID and with the financial uncertainty that I've been facing, and all of it. And that all of that anxiety was about me trying to have success. And with my business, with my, with everything. And me trying to have punya and me trying to avoid apunya. I mean, I remember a point toward the end of last year, and I was trying to run a third retreat, and my retreats weren't selling. This is before COVID, and I remember thinking, I just need a success. I need a win, And on this last retreat, I was realizing like I was just saying thank you for all of the failures, quote unquote, for the sicknesses. These are castles burning. This is my prison showing itself in its flawed nature and its partiality. Seeing that as long as I think that I am this body or I am Aaron, whatever, which is really like however many people see me, they all have their own versions of Aaron. But I had this idea that there's this like real Aaron that I could influence other people's liking or opinions of, an Aaron that when I die, people will go, gosh, wasn't she great? Wasn't she amazing? You know, for the next, I don't know, 10 years, 100, 1,000, 10,000, million? All of it's just temporary. Like all of it's temporary, no matter how famous I could get, no matter how much, you know. So for me, seeing that on my journey, at least, experiencing some suffering and experiencing the pain has been a huge part of, has been a huge gift. Nisargadatta says, pleasure puts you to sleep, pain wakes you up. And if you don't want to suffer, don't go back to sleep. And so this waking up, that for me has come through some pain and through some, you know, um, the gift of waking up has been this experience of getting really simple, just getting really, really simple, of seeing my attachments in these little things that I really kind of liked, and learning what it feels like to not stand in those places. Maybe I can observe them, you know, but to stand instead in that universal center. I'll read you just to close up, and I'm happy to take in questions. This is going to be the end here. The second verse of the Tao Te Ching. I'm going to read just the end of it here. Therefore, the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. She has, but doesn't possess. Acts, but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever. So if anyone has any questions, I'll take them. I think I'll wrap the video and I can take the questions.